this is City of Steel for Violin 2. I'm going to talk through some of these sections and then I'll play through the whole piece for you. So starting at the beginning, when we have these 16th notes, make sure you're out in the middle of your bow, very close to the fingerboard, so you can play very light, small bows. And then as we have these crescendos, just pull that bow a little closer to you, a little more bow, and a little more weight. These crescendos are only going up to mezzo piano, so they don't need to be quite so loud. We're not trying to get up to forte quite yet. And that pattern keeps continuing all the way through until 21, where you have all these swells up to a different dynamic. Just make sure you're checking when it, at 13 now, changes where you're crescendoing from mezzo piano up to mezzo forte, so that we can build up to the forte at 21. The pattern for this section is starting at the beginning, we have open to an F sharp, so high 2 to a third tape. Where that changes is in measure 7, and that's where we have the C sharp, so you're going to put a low 4 instead of a high 3, and then you'll have your high 2 on the tape. And that pattern continues again in measure 9 and then again in measure 12. So just make sure every time you play that, after you have your third finger, fourth finger right next to it between the two tapes over on the G string. In measure 19, you'll see in the part that I gave you 2 optional fingerings. So the first one is in first position, second finger on the tape. A sharp is a low 1 back behind the tape. So you would have to cross strings here. And then in the next measure, measure 20, it would be a third finger to a first finger. Then 3, 1. And be careful in 20 because that pattern does change, it's not just repeating. You also have an option if you don't want to cross strings, you can shift up and put your first finger. So instead of measure 19, playing that first note F sharp with a 2, you'll put a first finger there. The A sharp would then be a third finger, but it would be right past your fourth finger tape. So we would play 1, 3, 1, 3. That's why I gave you a high 3, because you're going to have a big stretch there. And then in the next measure, measure 20, it's a 1, 3 again. However, you're going to have to slide both of those fingers up a half step. So first finger now goes up to the third finger tape, and third finger has a bigger space. So playing from measure 18, slide and put your first finger on the second tape. Then up a half step. And the end of that would be 1, 2, 3, 2. Whole steps between all the notes. And then we would shift back and play that F sharp in first position. At the end of this page, measure 33, we have that A. You guys are also playing up on your E string. Make sure we're using a lot of bows so those notes come out clearly. Fourth finger all the way up on the tape. And then the next note is an A sharp, which is a high 3. So as you're playing that fourth, bring your third up next to it. The next note is a regular A natural, so you just have to slide that third finger back onto its tape. In measure 54 also, you'll have a G, third finger. The next note is a G sharp. Rather than sliding, just add your fourth finger a half step higher. Aside from that, throughout this section, just be careful to watch when we have like a slide from a 1 to a low 1, or when we have high 2s versus low 2s. Make sure at the end of measure 120, you take that DS al coda. It brings you back to measure 41. Play all the way through measure 64, and then we jump to the coda. Right now, what I'm going to do is go through the coda for you. So, starting on that B, low 1, open A. For the rest of the time, you are going to be playing 16th notes. So, make sure, because we're starting piano, middle of our bow, close to our fingerboard. As the dynamic builds, you can still stay a little closer to the middle, just we'll use more bow, and the most important is going to be more weight and pulling that bow closer to you. In measure 127 now. Do not play to the open A, play a fourth finger. And now here at measure 128, we can no longer avoid our string crossings. So we're gonna keep our third finger and we're gonna stretch our second finger back for a low 2. Measure 129, get that second finger back up on the tape. Measure 130, third finger to a low 1 on the A string. And now I'm at a forte, so you can see I'm playing from my balance point through the middle for this big sound. And now in measure 132, I just played a C sharp. So I could slide my second finger back for that C natural and play a fourth finger. When we're going fast, that might be tricky. So the easiest solution is after measure 131, you just play that C sharp, slide your first finger up next to it, put it in the space for low 2, and just play 1, 4. And that 4 will land on that fourth finger tape. And then you'll have that same pattern in measure 36. So starting from 131, high 2, I'm bringing my first finger up, 1, 4. Now for 133, I'm gonna slide my first finger back onto the tape. Now a low 1. Make sure you're staying closer to that bridge. And then I can slide my first finger up. And that takes us all the way to the end. Now I'm gonna play through the entire piece for you, and I'm gonna have the metronome set at 80. So this is a nice tempo for us to work on so that we can focus on our accuracy and our notes and our rhythms before we start to speed up. So right off the bat, start thinking those 16th notes. 1, 2 E and a 3 E and a. so sorry, second violins. We're gonna jump back to 63 because I missed the coda, sorry. 1, 2, 3.